everyone, Jay here from Just Technics, back again with another video for you, following on from what I was talking about before about the fake Mark Vs and, well, talking about refurb turntables in general. I've had a lot of emails come through my website, as well as WhatsApp messages through Facebook, Facebook direct messages, and calls as well. Pretty much every other day since I put the last video up, talking about the fake pair of Mark Vs that my customer did not know that he bought. He thought they were genuine, he was told they were genuine, and from the previous video you can all see that they weren't genuine. They were just somebody's resprayed them, powder coated them, etc. Stuck some crappy graphics on, and just basically what I call a Frankenstein, a pair of decks that's like a cut and shut in the car world, bits of everything all slammed together to make a pair of turntables, and this customer was none the wiser. And it's happened so many times now, and it's quite apparent it's happened quite a lot, because the amount of people that have messaged me saying, I've bought these recently, or I bought these last year, I bought these 5 months ago, didn't know, person I bought them for didn't care, told me they were genuine, argued the toss with me about it. You know, there's loads of bits to look out for, and this video is just to highlight a few of the bits that I was talking about in the previous video, but also to go along with a few bits that I'll be quite honest, completely forgot to mention, purely for the fact of the previous video is more just a bullet point thing of what to look for if you're in a bit of a hurry and you're going to be, you know, you're excited about buying a pair of decks. You know, everyone gets like it. They go to someone's house or they go to a shop and look over and go, oh my God, Technics. You know, we're all guilty of doing it. If you don't know what you're looking for, this is where they get you. And you get them back when problems arise. And if problems arise, this is when people like myself, or most in the industry that does this, will notice the issues, and you will get a phone call or an email saying, look, these aren't real, these have got problems, this is what needs to be done. So to stop this from happening, guys, I've got a list together of parts here that I'm going to talk about with you that you're best taking in. Okay, so we're going to start off, like I said, I've already gone through a few of these bits, so bear with me, all right? I'm going to start with the paint. All right, so when I say paint, we're talking about the plinth. So in general, this is one that I've wrapped. Here's one repaired earlier, right? So here's one I wrapped. Now, when I talk about the paint on these, you can see there's no graphics on these at the moment. This is a vinyl wrapped turntable. Now, my wraps, I trust, you know, the back of my hand, they're fantastic. They're 3M wrapped. I'm not going to go into any of this, but that's what a proper wrap looks like. Proper neat corners, everything done properly. And the idea is to make it look like an original factory finished turntable in whatever colour style you want. Okay, so when you get it back, that's what you get. Now, when I talk about paint, I'm talking about the plinth. So this is the one I'm talking about in general. What most people tend to do, there's two different ways of doing this. You've got paint and you've got powder coat. Now, people that tend to vinyl wrap these, such as myself, vinyl wrapping is a good alternative to paint and powder coat if you don't want to spend as much money, but you also want something that's a bit hard wearing. And also, if you feel like changing the paint or something, changing the colour or anything at some point, it's much easier to deal with to remove vinyl than it is to pretty much have something stripped of its paint or powder coat, now it vapor blasted or bead blasted, you know. So this is a much easier alternative. But most people, when they do refurbs or sell things as genuine, they have them powder coated or sprayed. And that's the two ways of doing that, okay? So vinyl wrapping doesn't really happen unless they're really dodgy and decide to do it and not tell you, send them off and cancel their account so you can't talk to them. That does happen too, so be very careful. But you could usually spot them a mile off. So what people will do, if they're going to spray these, there's two ways of doing this. So they either strip everything down, so you've got a bare plinth like this, same as I do whenever I vinyl wrap, and they'll spray everything, okay? So everything you see here, they'll sit this down flat, they'll literally just get a load of aerosol cans that they're knocked up in some random colour that's going to try and match the original colour on the deck. There was never any RAL colour for these. They were powder coated, so there wasn't a colour. They get the colour remanufactured or matched, and either get them put in aerosol can form, stick them in the back of their shed and have them resprayed, or they give them to a car sprayer who will then obviously match the paint and spray the whole thing over. So they'll either do the whole thing, back and top, okay, or they'll just do around the edges and leave the center. Now, what I've been seeing quite a lot of people that spray these, you see that sticker, the factory sticker at the bottom, a bit of a telltale sign to see if these have been resprayed is if you look around the sticker, okay, sometimes a lot of these guys, when they respray these, either spray straight over the stickers and don't bother removing them, so you'll see the outline of a rectangular sticker, okay, over the spray. Or the other alternative is they actually try and mask over the sticker and spray around it, which is just insane. But people have done this. I've seen that with 1200 plimps with 1210 black paint or charcoal paint. Absolutely ridiculous, because when you turn the deck around, if they've only done the front of it, the back of it will be a completely different colour. So if it's a 1200, it's that silvery colour, the back will be silver, and the top will be what they've sprayed, and it's a big giveaway. So again, something else to bear in mind. So when you have these powder coated, it's a completely different kettle of fish, because with powder coating, unless you ask them only to do the top section, they will generically do top side and back side. So what you need to look out for, if you're looking at a pair that look too good to be true and they're too clean, and you think that just doesn't look right, turn the turntable round, because the back of the plinth, where the power supply actually sits inside on the inside, this section here partially sticks through the back of the rubberized base. Okay, so even though it's the base, this bit sticks through. If it doesn't look like this, rough in either silver or grey, like that, doesn't look like that, it's been powder coated or resprayed. Okay, so straightforward and obvious. Powder coated units, this would be silky smooth. I'm talking glossy smooth, or whatever colour they've decided to have the top, this will be as well, because the entire back, corners, all the threads, everything they've done, the entire deck would have been coated. Okay, so it's very, very, very easy to spot. Now, graphics, we'll move on to graphics. Obviously, people reproduce graphics. You can have them either screen printed form, dry transfer form. You're meant to have it where, obviously, you will apply your paint, apply your powder coat, you know, pop your graphics down, 2K primer over the top. Some people etch them. There's all different ways of doing it. But telltale graphics, knockoff graphics in theory, are extremely easy to find. Okay, it's extremely easy to notice the difference. The best advice I will give is go on my Facebook page. Okay, look at any turntable that I vinyl wrapped, and you will see where I have the original graphics. Now, I used to use aluminium plates. I used to make them in-house. I stopped using aluminium plates unless I'm asked for them. Everything now is original style graphics. My graphics are carbon copies of the original. There's no way around it. They are carbon copies. They are very, very close, okay, distance-wise where you set them, but the graphics are spot on, right? The pitch side of things with the graphics, the P and the H, I think it's the P and the H, P and the J for the pitch adjust. The first letter P and the J, they're more elongated, so they're basically a little bit longer, but I've designed it like that. I like it like that. But they look a little bit better than the original. But everything else is how it should be. But have a look, and you will see a big difference on what copied graphics look like and genuine. If you do genuinely get stuck, go on Google, guys. Go on Google. You'll see the paint codes there. You better see the, well, not paint codes, so you better see the 1200s and 1210s that have been resprayed and powder coated. If you're going to see them and you type in 1200 and 1210, Mark 2, Mark 5, whatever you're looking at, and you type it in, there's bound to be a pair of originals there on boxes or something that you can go by and look at the graphics. And if you genuinely do get stuck and you really want me to clarify it with you, you could send me pictures, or even better, you give us a call and I'll send you some information over, and you can obviously take it with you to check. In fact, what I may very well do is bullet point sheet that I'm reading out to you here. I may very well get this typed up and do it as a downloadable file. So whoever's thinking about buying turntables, this will be with you as well. So in fact, I will do that. I am going to do that. All right. So ignore what I've just said. You don't have to go on Google. You just follow the link when I put it on. But yeah, graphics, very, very easy to tell a difference. A lot of people tend to do them as a standard type font that looks very similar, and they stretch the graphic out. It's usually wonky. They don't put things on straight, or the distances are just too far apart and it looks off. So if the graphics are too shiny, if the actual plinth's too shiny, things don't match and things don't seem too right, then it usually isn't. Okay, that's the graphics and the paint. Pitch trim is another classic one. People that replace pitch trims on these, if they're making out that they're original pitch trims now, stop making them. You can't buy them. The only people that tend to have pitch trims in stock are people that have lots of stock. They used to deal with Technics, Panasonic directly, and they can't sell them because they're so bloody expensive. You know, reproduction pitch trims are much cheaper now, but unfortunately there are some sellers out there who make some very, very bad quality pitch trims. So they may very well look the same to you until you apply them, and you'll find that they're either too shiny, graphics aren't straight, various paint marks and things on them, things like laser cut. There's lots of things to look out for with them. But if you're paying cheap money for pitch trims, it's very easy to tell the difference. Now, 1200s, you tend to find that the actual pitch trims themselves are very shiny. They've got a big sheen to them. Whereas if you're buying reproduced pitch trims for 1200s, they're more like a satin style finish. They're more glossy and not as shiny as in metally aluminium style when you move it. Does that make sense? Like a brush style when you look at it. So it's very easy to tell the difference between a fake trim and a genuine trim. Most people don't put genuine trims on because you can't really find them anywhere now. 1210 pitch trims is in black, Mark II up to Mark V, whatever you're going to do. Again, genuine pitch trims for Mark II, Mark V, etc. for 1210s, they tend to be a bit deeper in the colour. It's more like a matte / satin look to it. Okay, it's very easy to tell the difference. Aftermarket, reproduction ones now, you find that they're very shiny. Again, you can get them with a graphic science level, and the cheaper you buy, the worse they are. So if you're going to be buying this pair, you need to look at the pitch trims. Okay, the shader cloths that go underneath, you get shader cloths that go underneath the plinth, and what happens is they stealth adhesive stick right underneath here, so underneath where the trim will sit on the plinth itself. Are they ultra clean? They look black as black. Are they too clean for a new pair or something that's not a new pair, sorry, a pair that have been well looked after for 20, 30 years? If they're absolutely spot on black, you ask that person who's selling it, have you changed them? Same as anything else on there. If they say no, odds are they probably have, because if it's 20, 30 years old and there's not a speck of dust on it and there's no dust covers or anything, more than likely been replaced, okay? Because it's not a hard job to do. That's the pitch trims. We'll go with pop-up LEDs next. Now, this is as soon as I say pop-up LEDs, okay? Now, Mark IIs all genuinely had lamps. Now, the majority of these, when you buy them second-hand, if you're very lucky, they still work. But once they've been taken apart, someone's tampered with them, they blow. Switches go, LEDs go. You've got to rewire LEDs or rewire a lamp. Now, if you go into view a Mark II, and that Mark II, or an M3D or Mark II, and they've got LEDs fitted, it's an immediate, that turntable has been opened. Because Mark IIs and M3Ds all had lamps. The only turntables that had LEDs in the DJ series from the older legacy models was the M5G and the Mark V. M5G had blue LEDs on the pop-ups. The Mark V has a gone off white style, like a warm white / clear between the two. Okay, so if that's been changed and it's too bright and it's got an LED, you know they're talking out their bum, basically, guys. All right, so be very careful with that. So if it's got an LED and they tell you it hasn't, or they haven't changed it, haven't touched it, you know that they're not telling the truth. And they might not even know themselves. They might have bought them like this, but it's a big no-no. So bear that one there in mind. The two that I dealt with the other week when I put the video up, one had a Mark V assembly and the other one had a Mark II assembly in it. It's crazy how these guys get away with it. Anti-skate. So on the arms, bear in mind, there's so many things we could talk about with things to do with the arm itself, bearings for an example, arm tubes. Again, we'll be here for hours doing this, but these are the bullet points you need to look for to make sure that these are genuine units. So I'm not going to go over the technical spec of things. I could sit here and say, check the bearing movement, but you should be doing this, you know, making sure the arm freely moves. There's no jumps. A lot of people won't have these plugged in and give the excuse if they've been sitting in their loft for years or sitting in their studio untouched. They're not plugged in when you go to pick them up or get them delivered. Be very careful. But anti-skate, if you've got a pair of Mark IIs, it goes up to +3. You've got a pair of Mark Vs, M5Gs, it goes a lot higher, it goes +6. Now, it's only just graphics that are on the anti-skate itself. It makes no bloody difference whatsoever. In reality, it's just graphics on the knob. But if you have a pair of Mark Vs you're going to view, like on my previous video, and it only goes to +3 on both of them, you know they are not made for that turntable, and those caps have been changed at some point, or those assemblies are not from that turntable, and you will know that by looking at the anti-skate. If it says +3, up to +3, you're on a pair of Mark Vs, it's wrong. Walk away, don't touch them. And best advice is, if you've got a bit of leeway with you and you really know what you're doing, genuinely, if you think you can get away with knocking the price down, do it, because they're not going to be right. And this makes it even more in your favour if you still want them. So anti-skate, trims, graphics, all this stuff. You're not stupid, guys. You know, just go in there strong and prove your point with this if you're going to buy them. If you're determined to walk out with something and it's not right, but you still want to buy it, make it worth your while. Otherwise, you're going to be spending more money. Right, so that's the anti-skate. Like I say, you can tell if an arm tube's been replaced. I mean, usually if they're ultra clean, bearings are perfect, then great, that's all well and good. But if everything else around it's too good to be true, like I say, aftermarket trims, shader cloths, anti-skate, like I said, the paint, there's a good chance it's been refurbed anyway, replacement tube, replacement bearings, etc. Right, pitch control's a difficult one. Well, it's not actually, it's not difficult. Again, if you've got a pair of Mark IIs, if you buy aftermarket slider units, your plus 3.3 and your minus 3.3 will not line up. They will not on aftermarket units. The curvature is slightly steeper, so you'll find that the 3.3 will be around 2.5. There are people online selling these as genuine units as well. There is one seller in particular, sells them as a genuine unit. Again, personal opinion, don't touch them. Okay, aftermarket units will not calibrate in the same manner as a 3.3, but you used to have genuine units that also would not calibrate perfectly. So don't let that deter you, okay? But what I'm saying is most of these aftermarket units will have a softer click at 0. So when you have the softer click, the click as everybody tends to call it, is a ball bearing and a spring. So when you move it over the 0 position, it's meant to have a physical click when you move it in, okay? Again, if you buy a pair of Mark IIs that don't have that click, right, and they don't line up properly with the range. So say for an example, your 3.3 is near 2, like I say, and there's no ball bearing or spring, but the LED still lights up, it's more than likely going to, well, it is going to be a Mark II slider unit with the ball bearing and spring removed. If I turn around and tell you that it's got a Mark V unit in it, but the LED still lights up when you move it, you know they're lying. And again, that also works in your favour because you either walk away or tell them you are lying, look online, right? Mark V units, again, if you're buying Mark Vs and that green light works, they're Mark II sliders. There is no way around it. Literally, the way that the Mark V works, you've got no break in the board. It's continuous pitch range all the way through the range. In other words, there's no lock at 0. You have to manually tell the turntable to stop at 0 using the main board and a frequency counter. Once you set the pitch, you use your frequency counter, you set it to the correct frequency, and the deck will then tell that pitch where the perfect 0 position is, okay? So when you have it at 0, it won't click, but it will stop at 0, whereas the Mark II has a physical indentation for the click actually on the carbon track itself. So when you remove the ball bearing and spring, that lock is still there, right? Now, where I was going back to the calibration, so plus and minus 3.3, if they sit to about 2, but your plus 6 is just before, just after plus 6, again, yeah, aftermarket units. That's how they are. They're good for what they are, but they're not going to be genuine, all right? If you have genuine units, you tend to find that sometimes they can move around, hover around plus 3 for your 3.3 plus 3. Your plus 6 should really be 6.4 or plus 6, okay? If you find that you've got a larger range between plus 3 and 4, so it's hitting more towards 4, and your plus 6 is near 7, there's a very high chance they are also genuine units too. They just need recalibrating. Sometimes you get people that go in there, adjust the top adjusters on the main board, and that'll obviously, you know, that obviously won't help in any way, shape or form with your calibration because you have to get it back and recalibrate. But again, not a very hard job to do if you don't know how to do it. There's plenty of videos on there, but I'd recommend just leaving it alone and giving me a call or giving somebody else a call within the industry that I can trust. There's a few people. DJ Spares, Kev at DJ Spares for one. If you're abroad, then obviously sl1200s.com, Christian will help you as well. So these are the two main people that I physically trust. So you got Kev at DJ Spares and you got Christian at sl1200s.com. Awesome, absolutely awesome. So again, pitch controls, keep your eyes peeled for them. Make sure you do your checks on the pitch if you're allowed to plug them in. If they won't let you plug them in, walk away full stop. How are you going to check that something works if they've got them sitting in boxes by a front door and give you the excuse of I'm heading out, you know, or they haven't been plugged in for years, don't you trust me? It's like, well, no, mate, I don't know you from Adams, do I? So plug them in, make sure they work. That's your pitch. The platter. Now, you all know from the two that I did the other week in the last video that the platters on those turntables have been resprayed across the top. Really badly as well, black all the way to the top. Now, no stickers on them is a big common thing that they've been resprayed. So people tend to take the stickers off to respray them. I do that to wrap them unless people tell me to keep them on. So the stickers, the rectangular warning stickers on top of them in silver with the red writing, they usually get removed. You've then got people tend to use sandpaper around the strobe dots to try and get the sheen up instead of sitting there with a bit of elbow grease to try and get their platters nice and shiny. Now, if they're really old and corroded, they'll either spray them down and then they'll go over the top with sandpaper to get the dots come through. And then what they'll do is they'll just literally keep going around with finer grades of sandpaper until it starts to get shiny. But the problem is they don't get shiny, they get rougher. And when they get rougher, there's no way of getting them polished up unless you get them on a lathe and you get them spun up and they're perfectly cut, right? So you have to sit there and machine polish them. It is a mission to do, and the amount that I get through like that is horrific. And what also is the biggest telltale with these platters, when you touch the edges of the platter, so the actual strobe dots themselves, they should feel quite harsh. Not to the point if they're going to cut your finger harsh, but they feel like something is there. Does that make sense? Whereas a lot of these that have been sanded down and then repolished, they feel way too smooth, and they're visibly, the strobe dots are visibly rounder as well. So if you find that you're seeing that with your turntables, you can compare it to many pictures online. If that's how they look, they have definitely been sanded at some point, or resprayed, or both. Okay, that's something you need to bear in mind too. Back plates. Now, we didn't cover this in the last video, but on the back of the plinth, so where you have this at the back, you see these two cutouts here, either side of the plinth, you have plates that obviously screw onto the weighted section that sits in the middle of the turntable. So over your components, when you have this upside down, for an example, you pop your components into the top of the plinth. There's a weighted section that goes in the middle, and then the base will screw into the top of the actual plinth itself. But on the back of the actual weighted section, there are two plates that sit in L brackets, basically long L plate brackets that attach to the back, and that is where your dust cover sockets screw onto. Now, if you've got Mark IIs, it's very, very common that a lot of people tend to remove the sockets so that they can put deck savers on, or maybe they've done something like they want to put them inside a flush fitting DJ stand and the sockets just take up a few centimeters. I don't want there, want it nice and flush. I get that, I've done that too, right? So if you find decks like that, normally they just remove the screws and the plates will still be in. So you may be able to hear when you move it left and right slightly, the metal plates inside moving from left to right. But if they've done that and they've had them from new, then you can ask them, do you have the original sockets? If they say no and they've had them from new, you could say, well, where are they then? Because you've had them. If they include the boxes, for an example, why are they not in the boxes? If they've got the rubber mat and the rear auxiliary weight and the gauge for putting your cartridge and stylus, everything on, the manuals, etc., why haven't they got that? Why didn't they keep hold of them? Not everybody just wants to throw things away and put things aside. If they're your babies, and most people claim these are, why do you not keep all the goodies for them, right? That's very important. So with Mark IIs, for an example, none of them ever came, Mark IIs never came without dust cover sockets, okay? So you should have two bolts going through two plastic sockets, one either side of your turntable. That's what you do with your dust covers. Whether they're old or new, they should have that. If you're buying them without, ask the question why they don't have them if they don't have them. Again, with M3Ds, dust cover sockets. Mark V's, M5Gs don't have them. Now what happens is at the back, the biggest telltale is at the back of these turntables, you will find on Mark IIs, M3Ds, etc. like that, two older ones, you'll find there's two holes where the screws will screw into. The actual holes themselves aren't perfectly round. They're more like an oblong style. They're more like a rectangle with rounded edges, is what I'm saying, and they're going up like that, okay, on the back. So you'd have one either side of where the screws go in for the sockets. If they are in that rectangular fashion on a Mark II, then they are the original plates. If you find you've got a pair of Mark V's or M3Ds, okay, M3Ds will have the rectangular style, oblong style cutouts for the holes. Mark V's don't have that. Mark V's usually just have little pinpricks where the factory couldn't be bothered to drill the holes through. Because the most common thing that people will do with these turntables, if they really want to have dust covers on the back, is milling the holes out and popping some sockets on. It's more expensive, but it works, okay? And the distance between the two holes is usually about the same. So you might do a bit of jiggery pokery, but it works. So Mark V's do not have the holes, okay? You'll notice the difference of going online. I'll take some pictures or whatever you want me to do. I'll do it on the list. But the Mark V's do not have the holes. They have pinprick holes or really tiny holes. And in some occasions, the import models don't have them at all. They're completely flush. Mark V's, M5Gs, no dust covers. The actual dust covers themselves sit on top of the decks. So what I'm saying is there's no dust cover sockets on the back of Mark 5s or M5Gs. Okay, so keep your eyes peeled for that. If you have a pair of Mark 5s and they have these large hole cutouts at the back, you know that base or the actual plimps themselves, the inside sections for them, the weighted sections, have either been messed around with, changed, or not from that turntable. So again, big giveaway. We've then got the stickers on the backs. Like I explained in my previous video, if they've been refurbished and people have put warranty stickers on, you know, the whole void if removed, which comes off in 2 seconds of alcohol cleaner, right? It's ridiculous. If they strategically place them over the model numbers on the back of the actual rubber mats, ask if you can remove them. If they really say no, if these guys do this for a living, then they've got a whole stack of these warranty stickers. It makes no difference to them, right? If they want to remove them, they should stick another one on after you've done it. If they say, look, not that we don't disbelieve you, but there's a lot of rubbish going around online now, guys. We want to make sure that these are genuine. If they turn around and say you can't remove it, walk away. Because they should just be able to get a big roll of these stickers and peel another one off, clean all the alcohol off and stick another one over the top so that you are happy that once those stickers are removed, those bases match what you look at. So we had last week's one. We had an M3D on a Mark 5 and then we had a Mark 5 on a Mark 5 plinth, right? No real way of telling whether the plinths were from Mark 5s or M3Ds, but from what we saw in the video, big giveaway that they were not correct. So yeah, if they cover the stickers over with warranty stickers or the bases, if the bases aren't correct, you know they're definitely not right. If the stickers have been removed completely, it's another big giveaway that have been worked on. Why would you remove the stickers? They're your model numbers, right? So again, stay clear. If they've got the stickers removed, if they've got void stickers over the top, ask them to be removed for a picture. If you're going to look at them and these guys refurbish them, get them to remove them while you're there and ask them to put replacements on for their own peace of mind. If they refuse to do that, walk away, okay? Missing screws, most obvious thing ever. People just don't look at this. Those Mark 5s, for an example, missing and incorrect screws, right? Bolts, screws, all this sort of stuff. A lot of people, when they refurbish them, you find they just take all the screws out, throw them in tubs. They don't know what order they go into, but they'll put them back in because most of the screws are all the same size, Fred, right? So you can get them on or make them fit. Terrible way of doing it. But 9 times out of 10, I find that base screws are all missing. 2 or 3 of the edging screws around the casing are missing, the long bolts that go through. The plastic, usually one that snaps the plastic on the start and stop assembly, that always gets over tightened. You know, and just be very careful. Have a look underneath. See if the screws are missing. If someone's had a pair of decks from new, if they claim they're from new, and all the screws are missing, but they've never taken it apart, why are all the screws missing? So a big important thing to check is all the underneath screws. Make sure there's nothing missing. Make sure nothing's been overturned and snapped. Because again, why has it been overturned and snapped? Why have they threaded it? Why are there, you know, check for teeth marks. Obviously, when you do your Phillips screwdriver, make sure there's no churn marks on the screws. Check for wear and tear on them. Because again, the screws may be there, but you need to check for marks and wear marks to see if they haven't been taken apart. These are all very important things. It's like buying a bloody car, guys. You've got to be really careful. So make sure missing screws, incorrect screws, worn screws. Okay. Same thing goes for the plastic cover. So underneath, lift the platter up. If they turn around and say you can't do it, no, you're allowed to do it, guys. You have to make sure it's under there. If no one lets you do this, walk away again. If they're determined to sell them or they're brassing for money, they're going to tell you to do whatever you want to make you happy. But if it's a shop, if it's genuine refurb guys that do this, they will let you do this. Platter off, knock yourself out, right? Look to make sure all the screws that go around are the correct size. They sit flush in the insides of the plastic covers. You'll have 5 screws. Make sure they all fit correctly. Make sure there's none missing. And the other really important thing on this, Mark 5s and Mark 2s, M3Ds, the plastic cutouts are different. A Mark 2 cutout won't have anything genuinely on the top. You should just find it just screws down. There's no access to anything at all. M3Ds, on some occasions, you'll find there's access to the brake if you're lucky on some of the M3Ds. Mark 5s have a physical cutout that says brake. The idea with the Mark 5s was you could put your platter on, move it into a set position where you lift your thumbs up for the platter. You could put a screwdriver down through the hole and adjust the brake to your liking. You could do that on any of them, but this turntable made it very free and easy to do this. If you go on a pair of Mark 5s and they haven't got those plastic covers on, they're wrong. So again, not correct, walk away and ask them why they're not like that. Main boards, power supplies. Main boards and power supplies, this is where things get very tricky if you don't know what you're looking at. A lot of customers, when they buy these and they get done over, don't know what they're looking at until they get them home and actually open them apart or send them off to people like myself. Main boards, now what tends to happen is if you've got a main board problem with a deck that someone buys, say for example, you buy a pair of Technics, you've got a problem with it. You turn it on, it spins around, or turn it on, it spins backwards, or turn it on and the pitch is juggling all over the place, but you've tried changing the pitch, you've tried the obvious bits that you would do because you're not really technically minded to do it, right? Tried all of that, don't know what it is, but you found out online how to replace the main board. So you replace the main board and you sell that spare main board on eBay, make a few quid, or stick it in a drawer, right? The main board's going to look different unless it's from that era. So you find they're a different shade of colour, you'll find that where the coils, actually the wires curl round onto the main board, they're going to be soldered down where people tend to solder them because the cables will actually fray away after a few turns. You know, make sure that the power supply and the actual PCB for the fuse board matches the same colour and style as what the main board is itself. Sounds crazy, but if they're two different shades or look too good to be true and they're two different shades and the coils are soldered, if they're soldered, they've been changed over. There is no reason for that to be removed unless there is an issue and someone has round off the cables and taken it off. Those cables were never soldered on in the factory. They were wound on by hand or machine. They were wound on. They were not soldered. If you take that cover off and find the 2 points are soldered with the cables, somebody's had that board out. If the board looks different, then you know damn well it's not right. Mark 5s tend to have, like I say, Mark 5s have a black plastic adjuster, which for the potentiometer adjuster, basically, for the brake. So you can turn it by hand. It's very easy to move by hand, but you can also do it by screwdriver very gently. It's the only deck out of all of these old models to have this, okay? So Mark 2s don't have this, M3Ds don't have this, Mark 5s have it. If you've got that black adjuster on there, you know that's a genuine. Again, I'll put some pictures on the link. We can all do this. It's not me today, but it will be on. So black plastic adjuster. If it's a pair of Mark 5s and they both have that, their boards are from Mark 5s. But make sure still that those points I just talked about with the wires have not been soldered. Make sure that they are on there, wound round by hand and untouched. M3Ds typically have like a white adjuster. You'll find they're white with a silver outline. Again, I'll put some pictures up of this so we can all see this. Mark 2s will either have a silver adjuster or a blue pot adjuster on all of them. Okay, and again, I'll put pictures up. These are all things to check for. So that's your main board. Wiring. Now, again, this is a very difficult one. A very difficult one if you don't know what you're looking at. Mark 5s usually, I'll say newer end of the Mark 5s, newer end of the Mark 2s will have white connectors. Okay, so if you look at the main board and you look at where the connectors go on, the actual sockets where the cables go onto will be white. So you usually find that the start and stop assembly that comes from the bottom of the deck that plugs into the bottom be white, the right hand side connector white, and the pop-up lamp, which is the very top connector, will be white as well. M3Ds usually, or MK3Ds, M3Ds, they usually have either white or black. Usually it's black connectors, okay? So it's very difficult to do. And again, I can put some pictures to give you a guidance and ideas of what to do. Mark 2s will all be black unless they're a newer style, newer towards the end of the range. But they're usually all black, no matter what ones you tend to go for. So again, if you've got a different connector, say for example, the wire that connects to your pitch control, the actual socket is black, but the wire and the connector is white, you know that that connector doesn't match that socket. So if the colours are the same, they match. If they're not the same, someone's had it out. So if your pitch control doesn't match the colour, the actual socket doesn't match it, you know that's been taken out. If the start and stop assembly wiring harness cable, the white longer cable, doesn't match, that's been changed at some point. And if the pop-up lamp wiring harness changes, you know that that's been taken out at some point. If all of them look different, then you really do need to start thinking this isn't original, where someone's rebuilt them. Okay, that's a big thing to look out for too, and people just don't give it any thought because they don't know what they're looking for, right? Wiring. Thermal paste, another classic. You saw it on the video from the last one I did. Thermal paste was caked on. It was done in this horrible coppery paste. It was cheap, nasty, horrible stuff, and it still had the original thermal paste compound underneath. You don't want too much of it. You want to make sure it's original. It's like usually like a pale white colour. There's hardly any on there. It could look quite dry as well, and that's just original. But if you get something that looks too good to be true, it looks like it's been freshly installed and there's too much of it, or it's in a completely different colour other than white, it is not original, and be very careful touching that. And you know that that's been changed over. In order to change the main board, you have to unscrew the transistor for the top, pull that out, and the whole board comes out with it. If that's been removed, you will know by looking at it. Dust cover, what's that? Dust cover sockets. I've explained that one already. Power cables. Now again, power cables is a bit more of a difficult one to look for really. Depending on the ages of the turntables, you can get power cables that look like speaker cable. Very, very thin. So when you take the top of the deck cover off, it's a little grommet plastic retainer clip that holds the actual cable down. Very, very small, very, very thin. If it's the original style cable and you look at the cable connectors, look at where the solder is. If it looks like it's been wrapped around loads of solder on, again, you will tell the difference by looking at any other solder port on that deck. You will know if someone's had their own DIY soldering iron in there just by looking at the connectors. But if it's got the older style cable with the two strands, separate strands, looks like speaker cable. If it's got that cable on there, pretty high chance that is an original power cable. Okay, usually people just change the plugs because they get old over years and years and years. You've then got the European style plugs that go into the bigger plastic block that goes into a UK connector. If it's got that, that's a good sign. Usually that's an original cable, but again, trace the wire back, look at where it goes onto on the PCB, make sure the soldering is clean and crisp and it looks original factory. Everyone knows really what that looks like. If it looks of anything else, if there's an aftermarket cable on there, you will notice it a mile off. If the cable looks pristine, if there's stickers on the cables, if there's like plastic sticker sheets that wrap around the cable with a model on it, these are all things that these decks do not have. The only thing they used to come with was like a little yellow strip or a little red slip that used to go over the power cable and go down the cable connector. Most people used to rip them off. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But keep an eye on the cables. So look at the solder points, make sure they're nice and clean, make sure they're nice and neat, and make sure that the cables look original. Okay, like if you really need help, I can put pictures of that on the little sheet for you too. Audio cables. Now again, this gets everybody. You tend to find with Mark IIs, you've got the round style connectors that push straight in. You've then got the square rectangular style ones that push straight on. And then you've got the high fidelity cables, which the M5Gs used to have. The high fidelity cables were gold plated connectors, and they were called a high fidelity cable, higher quality than every other connector on the old Mark IIs, but it's what they were. If you've got high fidelity cables, it will say high fidelity, and you'll tell that a mile off. If you've got standard Technics cables, hence say Kawasaki down the cable, or in this case, power cables, sorry, Kawasaki, ignore what I'm saying there. Power cables, you will tell. Cheap power cables, I'll show you what one looks like. Give me just a second. I'm going to show you very quickly what a cheap power cable looks like and what a genuine one looks like. So give me a second. Right, okay. If I had thought of this earlier, I would have actually had this ready for it to show you. So, genuine old power cable, audio cable, sorry, looks like this. That is an original audio cable for an older series Technics. Newer series ones look very similar to this, but this cable here is not genuine. It's extremely cheap. Even looking at the two of these. Looks new. Thick, plastic, rubbish. That is not genuine. High fidelity cables look very similar to this, but they actually have that stated on the cable. Panasonic cables, some of them do have things written on them, some of them don't, but this one here is an original. So this is what you need to look for. Anybody that says they changed the ground cables on them, you need to ask them why they changed the ground. 9 times out of 10 they snip them off and they replace it with something like this one. That is a aftermarket grounding cable. People label them as new, they're not. Usually grounding cables that are aftermarket will be shorter than the stock cables too. So when you actually wind the cable out, the audio cable and the ground cable, you'll find that the grounding cable is usually about that much shorter, or that much shorter in theory, than what the audio cable will be. Some sellers online will tell you that is normal. That is not normal, guys. Every single Technics turntable I've ever taken apart has had a normal length audio cable, the same size as the ground cable and vice versa. So if they try fobbing you off and telling you that this should be short, ignore it. It's not true. So if it's got a shorter ground cable, Ask them why it's got a short ground cable. It's got audio cables that don't look so good. Ask them why they've been done. That's the biggest one that usually happens. Audio cables, bearings, they're the two biggest things that come in here. Audio cables, bearings, and pitch controls. So these are all things you need to check. Feet as well. Make sure that the feet are genuine. People have started 3D printing now the feet for them. They haven't got the dampening. Excuse me, they haven't got the dampening that what the standard feet would have. They'll do the job for home, but not when you play out. Make sure that you've got genuine feet. Make sure that all the feet match. The older series of Technics, the real early series of Technics, they have a different style of foot. The actual the recessed section at the top that looks at the top and the corners are in like a really bright silver colour, whereas on a normal Technics it's more of a goldy style copper colour, and they sit at different levels too. You'll find that also, depending on wear and tear, that the actual rubber section across the top of the feet does deteriorate over time and can crack. And when that cracks, there's a spring inside the actual foot. When it cracks, the spring will literally just sit there. There'll be no foot for it attached to, and you need a replacement. Unless you want to start spending £25–30 per foot, guys, make sure that you check the feet, because if they're not, that is an expensive thing to start looking for. 20, 40, 60, 80. That's 80 quid for 4 feet at £20. Any higher than that, it's not worth it. Because you're looking really, 2 of those decks, nearly 200 quid, could be nearly £300 for feet. You're looking after the price of a single deck really on eBay. So just be careful with what you're looking for. Other than that, guys, like I say, arms, you've got to check the bearings. You want me to go through that sort of side of things. So bearings, make sure that the bearings freely move. You can balance the needle if it comes with a cartridge and stylus. Obviously, you do it. If you've got a cartridge and stylus, but the customer, the guy you're buying it from, hasn't got that, take yours with you. Balance the back. Make sure it moves. If the arm does not move at all and it is just seized, then the bearings will need replacing. There is no way around that. Sometimes the pivots get tightened. This one here, for an example, what I'm redoing for this week, the pivots on this one here, if you carefully look, the top pivot screw itself has been screwed all the way in. As you can see it clearly there. That's absolutely ruined, and the actual pivot section for the bearings is loose, and you can hear that moving, and obviously the actual clip lock itself is snapped. So this arm is still actually okay, it's still level, but the bearings need replacing, and the pivots may need reseating, which they will do. So these are all things to be careful of. I know it sounds ridiculous, guys. It's worse than buying a car. It's worse than buying a bike. You think that buying a set of turntables, no matter what they are, would be a simple task, but sorry about that, guys. Yeah, unfortunately, because these turntables are so rare really now, really, to get them, you can't buy them brand new. Obviously stopped making them in 2010. People now are cottoning on that they're worth a lot of money. COVID prices, COVID tax blew the prices up. Everybody now that owns a pair of Technics are getting them out of the lofts. They're buying cheap pairs, they're respraying them, they're just Frankensteining, putting things together. It's just not fair. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you will get burnt. You will get burnt badly. And unfortunately, the only person that pays the price for this will be yourselves, because you'll buy something you don't know what you're looking at. This is why I'm doing this video, to pre-warn you, and just to give you a bit of ammo and a bit of help really, so that you don't get ripped off. Because I don't want you spending £1,200–1,300 minimum really on a set of decks that are meant to be in good condition. The other thing really that's worth talking about is boxes too, packaging boxes. You're meant to have, with any of these Technics boxes, they're meant to have the graphics down the sides with the actual model of the turntable. You should have serial numbers as well. Serial numbers will match the back of the turntables, so you can match the boxes with them. If they don't match and haven't got stickers, ignore them again, walk away and ask them why they don't. If the boxes look brand new and they haven't got the model of turntable down the side, like a lot of these resellers do, then they're not going to be genuine. That's just truth. And the internals, they should have polystyrene, not foam. If any of these original boxes have foam inserts, very similar to like Master Sounds boxes. If you've never seen Master Sounds boxes, they've got separate cutouts for everything. They're fantastic. But if it's like a Master Sounds box, it's not a genuine internal set, and the box won't be genuine either, because it's made to fit those internals. So the actual internals of the box should be polystyrene. Okay, there should be polystyrene. There's another thing there should be. There's usually a cardboard sheet that goes over where the dust cover will go on top, the top of your rubber mat, and then obviously you put another cover over the top. They do vary slightly, but the internals in every single box I've ever worked on, even when selling these turntables from new many years ago, have all been polystyrene. So there is no excuse for anybody telling you any different. And if they try fobbing you off with their boxes saying that they're genuine and they've got foam inserts with no serial numbers on the sides and no model numbers on the sides, walk away, because they are not genuine. But yeah, in this day and age, it's very, very easy to get ripped off now. It's very, very easy to get palmed off with second-hand rubbish that, for all you know, that plinth, this plinth here, for an example, now I know this is genuine because obviously I vinyl wrapped these. I had to remove the graphics, etc. So this plinth here is from a new turntable, well, no new turntable, a genuine Mark II. But if you buy this second-hand, you're not going to know what this is from. Only the person that's completed the work will know where this is from. So I know that this person has had these from new. He's looked after them. He had some issues with sticky buttons and bearings. Someone's obviously dropped something on them at some point, but they were a matching pair. The serials match, and they're very close to each other. He bought them both at the same time, pretty much from the same shop, and you could see it from the serial numbers. And these were well looked after. Hence why the wrap has gone down so well, and the corners are nice and neat. That's what a proper wrap looks like. But you don't know what this was from. So where I'm coming from is I know the background of this turntable, but you won't know the background. Now, if you're lucky enough to buy, if you were to buy this from me, for an example, I'll tell you, I'd say, look, this person had this from new. The serial numbers were both practically matching. He's well looked after them. Fancy the wrap. That's what he's done. If I'm selling it on behalf of the customer, that's what I tell him. And it's truth. But you will then get people that will buy these and then sell them after I've sold them. They're not going to know who's bought them and done the work. Now, normally, by looking at something like that, without blowing my own trumpet, you're going to look at that and you're not going to really have any problems, are you? Right? You're not going to have any problems because the graphics have been put down perfectly. The actual wrap's been put down perfectly, guys. There is nothing to quibble at on that wrap. That's going to last you between 5 and 7 years externally, as 3M tell you, but in reality, that's going to last you double, if not triple that, as long as you look after it. It's a 3M wrap, best you can buy. No cheap rubbish, no eBay wrap. But you're going to know straight away a good quality wrap and a good quality job compared to something that hasn't been done properly. But what I'm saying is, you're buying things second or third hand from somebody, you're not going to know the background. There's a very high chance that someone buys a turntable, could buy this from me, sell it on again, and that person who buys it from the person I sold it to may not be told who's done the work, may not be told what the background was. So for all you know, this turntable looks fantastic. I could have removed all the graphics on that. I could have removed all the paint. It could have been in the most horrific condition you can imagine. Because I've removed all the paint and smoothed the top and the side edges off, you wouldn't know any different. You could have been buying a deck that was found on someone's at a tip. Could have been found in a skip somewhere, in a rubbish pile, in someone's bin, at a charity shop. It could have had no arm. It could have had no platter. It could have not worked at all. You know, this is what people do. They go out and source second-hand decks cheap, buy parts cheap, and then rebuild the turntables with the cheap parts. That way they can make an absolute ton of money, when in reality they probably pay £20, £30 for a plinth that's got a slight dent at the back, which you wouldn't notice, that's in really bad condition, and then buy peanuts worth of add-ons. You know, this is what you don't know, and this is why you need to watch these videos carefully, because I'm being truthful and honest with you. Nobody else is going to tell you this. Nobody else is going to turn around and tell you what to look out for with second-hand turntables. And it's quite apparent now, especially with refurbs, just how many people are out there to screw you over. Because like I say, going back to the very beginning of the video, I've had so many people contact me. It's ridiculous. I've been sent pictures. People asking me, are these turntables genuine? They're going to look at turntables and asking me. I had 2 yesterday. Are these turntables genuine? I had a pair of Mark IIs. Someone was looking at them with boxes. Sent me a link and said, I'm meant to be picking these up next week, Jay. Are these genuine? Took one look at the picture and said, no. I could tell it a mile off. But this is why I'm doing a follow-up video. And this is why I'm highlighting my reasons why you need to be very careful. Now, as I stated, there is going to be a check sheet. I'm going to write down and get this typed up on the computer. It probably won't be today, or when the video goes up, it won't be the same day, but there will be a check sheet. I'm going to have the different types of potentiometers on the main boards. The wiring I talked about with the soldering, it should be hand tight and not soldered on, and if they are, reasons and questions to ask them. what the different audio cables look like, what the grounding cable looks like, the height of the grounding cable, what the power cables look like, the dust cover sockets. There's plenty of things for me to highlight for you, and this will be like a little help sheet that I'm going to have together with a link. It's going to be permanently available once I pop this online. So basically for anybody that has bought a pair and was within their 14 days to return it from an actual seller that you're allowed to return back and get your money back, if it's got a warranty, etc., you're within your right to throw it back, and you've got some ammo there to help you out. So if you spot something and you're dealing with someone who just works from home, from a back bedroom, who does it on the side, that offers no warranty, you really do need to be careful, because those people will turn around and just go, nope, no worries. If they give you an invoice, you have got ammo. You have got something to play with. Whether it's a 3-month warranty, a year's warranty, whatever they give you, you have got ammo there. You've got an invoice. If they don't offer you an invoice, if it's a private sale, okay, if it's a private sale, this is where this check sheet's going to come in handy, because if it's a private sale, you can go through everything. And if it's not a private sale, still go through everything. The amount of DJ shops I've dealt with, I've dealt with people who've bought turntables from DJ shops where I have had to complete work on them, repair their fixes. It's insane. Just be careful. So this check sheet's going to come in handy for anybody that wants to buy a set of Technics. Doesn't really go for any other turntable. I mean, you could use the check sheet on things like feet, arm bearings with different arms, etc. But this is mainly structured at Technics. What you'll find now is the majority, well, every turntable on the market now, including Technics, funny enough, with the GRs and the Mark 7s, the build quality is nowhere near as good. And all these individual components that you need to check, you don't need to check, because they're not there to check. They've redesigned everything. And a lot of turntables now, because they're obviously mass produced, they're a cheaper thing to build because they spend less money to make them. They're cheaper components, cheaper build quality, everything's all in one. And like I said before, with super OEMs being made practically in the same family by hand pin, you haven't really got a lot to worry for. But Technics, this is a big minefield. People out to rip people off. Everybody lies, right? I don't care what people say. I don't lie. I say it as it is. I just want to tell you all the truth. This is why I'm doing these videos. But everybody in the industry lies, whether it's white lies or what, little white lies. People want to lie to get a sale. Me, I'm happy just paying my bills. As long as I've paid my bills, I'm happy. You know, as long as I can keep my family afloat and I can keep myself afloat, a few quid in my bank, I'm happy. I don't care about ripping people off. I don't care about making a quick 100 quid, quick 50 quid. I spend most of my time helping people out. You ask any customer that's dealt with me over the last 2 weeks who I've spoken to, who I've saved money, sent freebies out to, get them sent in, I'll sort bits out for them. I help everybody out any way I can. So I'd like to think that anybody that watches this doesn't think that I'm talking out my backside, and that actually believes what I'm saying. And all I'm trying to do is advise you to be extremely careful. And this is where this check sheet will come in handy, guys. So please, be careful. Anyone's got any questions about anything, obviously leave a comment below. You're more than welcome to do that. I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. Obviously, I do get through between 2 and 3 pairs of Technics every week. And I'm fully booked at present up until the middle of June. So if you expect replies straight back, don't be downhearted if you don't. Because there's been a lot of people that are commenting me and commenting and then calling me and then emailing. Don't do it. Just leave your comment. I'm in control of the page. This business is mine. All right. I'm the only person that does this. This is just me. I deal with admin, accounts, marketing, everything you can think of. So it's just me that's doing this. So when it takes longer for me to get back, now you know why. Okay. Be extremely careful, guys. If you need any advice of anything, leave a comment. Send me a message on Facebook. Send me a message by WhatsApp. Send me an email. Go through the website. Find the details on there. Give me a call. Try and avoid giving me a call unless you really have to, though, because I am busy. But give us a call if you need to. I'm more than happy to help you guys, all right? And in the meantime, check out justtechnics.co.uk. Go on the Facebook, Just Technics. Instagram, Just Technics. Whatever you want to do, more than happy to help you guys, all right? Thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope this has been a bit of a help to you. Take it easy.